Welcome to Resident Life's council meeting discussion, and I am Clint Lambert. I am the host today, and I am very pleased to have in the studio with me the council liaison to the Resident Life Committee, Ives, and the chair of the Resident Life Committee, Nancy Weimer. Welcome to both of you.
Well, thank you. Good to be
Glad
here.
to have you guys here. There's a lot of things going on with Resident Life, and I don't think everybody knows all the stuff that Resident Life Committee and just Resident Life in general does for all of us.
Well, I know I sure didn't before I got assigned as liaison.
Yeah.
All of a sudden I saw this thing, what is going on here? And I'm still finding pieces that in there, but and the diversity of it, you think from going from pastoral care with all of that, taking care of services and funerals and visitation and the liaison with the other faith groups that want to be here and organizing all of that. This studio in here, Diane trying to keep track of and whatnot, not just the studio itself, but also maintaining and assisting in all the different places where we gather in taping different things that are going on.
Because anything involving the microphones or lighting,
that's
they're
about
involved
it.
in, right?
Yeah. So it gets good in there. We think of the wellness center, the fitness center, and all the different places where they have classes for the people, the films that they make so that you can exercise in your apartment with them. So that's going on. Special trips where Robin is trying to organize things and meet the needs of people, whether it's just local stuff for one day or a longer term.
Or tied in with something else that other Erickson communities are doing as far as travel.
So hitting that. The community resource coordinators, they're, I think of Anita and Janelle and Dwayne, trying to find places for us to meet in the rooms that we need and organize and set up the way we need them, and all this stuff. For about 200 meetings a month. Yeah. They must go out of their mind.
I mean, it's like a big jigsaw puzzle, it seems like. You know? And until recently, and I don't know how much is happening now, but I know they had continually tried to work on a calendar as far as people putting it in ahead of time and trying to coordinate it. And administration and staff often fill things in, or the residents fill things in, and people had to really negotiate how they can get the space to meet.
Yeah, and if they talk about a master calendar, and the latest we've come up with is, well, there are actually about 2 of them, and trying to balance, you know, so how you organize that, you know, they work with the bulletin boards and trying to have the information up there as to where things are happening, when they're happening, and so doing a lot of that work. Because with the bulletin boards,
my understanding is, and correct me if I'm wrong, that they're trying to put things that are most important down low for people to be able to read them better, and the things that aren't quite as important to put them up higher. Is that correct?
Well, they're
always, to do that.
Always fiddling with it. How do you put it in such a way that people can read it?
Right.
You know, if you're in an EMV, well, something way up high you can't see.
Yes.
So how do you organize it and put things in the different spaces? Yes, it's something that is really good. What color do you print it in for people that have some vision difficulty? So that makes a big difference.
And which font size do you use?
Right. So we get the whole thing in there. The intermissions that I was not familiar with at all, for the folk that need a little bit more of a small group type of experience and support as they're coming out.
I'm not even sure people know what intermissions are.
I understand it as somewhat a therapy.
Okay.
If you are dealing a little bit with some memory loss, sometimes it's helpful there. Okay. Sometimes if you just need to get out of the room and enjoy interaction with people, social interaction, they'll use music, they'll use games, they'll have the lunchtime together. So a way to address some of those needs.
Because I also understand it's for spouses to have a break if they're
Yes,
providing
that's
care
true.
for their spouse.
So they get in. Then the famous resident service coordinators, the social workers that we have, and all that they get in is service us and point. They're the direction people and say, okay, if you've got that, go that way and whatnot. And so they just service in all kinds of different ways. You have another area that gets in your home support area, whether it's just something that you need in working in the apartment and working with the facility, or if it has to do more with a person, if you need help with the medications or some of the dressings or anything like that.
Yes.
So that's another whole area that's in there. So
because I always question why is home health and home support under resident life? It's like, wait a minute, what's this all about?
So those are the kind of things, and I think Nancy gets in a lot of times too. With there's certain functions where there's some support, monetary support, and reimbursement for community kinds of activities, and they have to make the decisions on that.
Yes.
They don't have a lot of money, but how can that best be used?
Right.
So there's just all kinds of things that she's dealing with. So she's the one that knows, what goes on in that whole thing and the needs of it that are really good.
Well, and before we jump to Nancy here, what is your role in regards to the committee and to the council?
Mainly, once again, playing Western Union. What things need to go from the committee to the council, whether they be decision making or just information or things that need to be looked at, and that. So it's just mainly that role of communications back and forth.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Ivan. Nancy, you just got told you're the one that does the work.
It is a lot of work, but I do enjoy it. With intermissions, I noticed, because they meet by the fireplace here in Village Square, and they used to have a very small group, about 4, maybe 5 people. Well, that group has grown to like 15 or 16 people.
That's tremendous.
Now, you can go as little as 1 day a week, or you can go 5 days a week, or you can go in the morning only and have lunch, or go in the afternoon, and you also have lunch in the afternoon. So I talked to Amy, and I said, could you use some help? Because I see this group growing and growing and growing. She said, I would love some help, but they have to have some training first. And there's privacy issues with this. But what they like, what the Gals in Intermissions like, is that they have one person who stays for the whole 5 hours.
Oh.
Okay, because then the people get more used to them.
Right.
And, but some of my people that wanted to volunteer found that to be too much of a commitment of time to be there for a whole day.
Yes.
I try not to ask them to give more than 2 hours at a time.
Okay.
And, but I've made some very good friends. We have one lady that always comes up and says, could I eat with you in the dining room tonight?
That's tremendous.
So it is really good. With the coordinators like Dwayne, Anita, and Janelle, they are so busy. And 2 recent things that they asked for help, if they need volunteers to help out, they call me.
Oh, that's nice.
And Anita talked to me last week and said, do you think you could get me some volunteers to help put tickets into envelopes and into the cubbies because of the talent show? The tickets are free, but you must have a ticket to get in.
Yes.
And they're having 2 shows this year. So I got 1 person from each neighborhood to take care of that. Yesterday, Dwayne called me Tuesday afternoon late and said, could you get me 6 volunteers tomorrow for a handout for the Diversity Expo? I said, oh my goodness, Dwayne, you need to give me more notice. Because a lot of people had things that they could have possibly changed had they known it ahead of time.
So as part of your job then, or your responsibilities as chair of the Wrestling Life Committee, then to assist in getting volunteers, and are the volunteers from the committee?
Yes.
Or are they just people at large?
For the things that we do throughout the year, except for staff appreciation, the volunteers are from my committee.
Oh, wow.
And but staff appreciation, which we're heading into, it will kick off the 1st of October.
Okay.
And we have 1,000 employees that are hourly employees that are eligible for staff appreciation.
That's increased. And increased because corporate changed the salary to hourly, right?
Hourly,
changes.
yes.
Yes, okay.
There was a law passed when Obama was in office that if you made, and I can't remember exactly, but it was around $47,500 a year in salary, and you were a salaried employee, the government you have to pay your employees overtime.
Ah.
So what Erickson decided to do was take those salaried employees that fell in that range and made them hourly.
Okay.
But we have 74 different job descriptions.
Wow.
And 1,000 employees. Now, staff
phenomenal.
appreciation takes 100 volunteers. That's how many volunteers it took us last year when we kicked this off. Because we were outside all of the dining rooms every week. And then, of course, we do the check distribution in December. And that I don't have 100 people. But that's not 100 different people. It's 100 volunteers. I have people on the committee that volunteer for almost everything.
Speaking of the committee, how many people do you have on the committee?
Active, we have 14.
14, okay.
We originally had 18, but a couple of them attended like one meeting and then never showed up. And
so are you looking for new members?
Not really.
Oh, okay.
It becomes very cumbersome to get a room that's large enough
Okay.
to hold, and we meet in the card room here in Village Square.
Okay.
So you need to have space for them to be able to write. In the classroom, some of the groups that are fairly large, and dining services comes to mind, they have smaller tables in that room.
Okay.
The tables in the classroom are a card room, I'm sorry, are 4 foot square.
Okay.
And so they take up a lot of space and to get the people around. And then the people you have that use rollators or power chairs.
Okay. So a lot of volunteering, a lot of extra things, different things all the time going on, right? You mentioned staff appreciation. Why do we have it? What's the purpose of it?
Well, first of all, you're not allowed to tip here. You're not allowed to tip your employees, or tip the employees. And this shows our appreciation to the employees, and we always do the checks in December. And so it's just a little extra something for them for Christmas to show how much we appreciate what they do for us.
Okay, and so there's always a goal, right, of amount of money to be raised.
Yeah.
And who sets that?
Our committee sets that, and for 8 years prior to 2017, the goal was $285,000. I talked to the committee, and last year we raised the goal to $295,000.
Okay.
And we actually raised $318,000.
Wow. That's tremendous. That is tremendous.
And but I was a nervous wreck till we got to the 295.
I'm sure.
And it all depends on the generosity of the residents,
Exactly.
what we have. And last year, Elaine Sorensen, who's on the committee, was the last speaker because we're on Channel 6 here
Right.
a couple times. And she was the last speaker, and she's very heartfelt about giving for staff appreciation. And we actually had 15 residents who wrote a second check.
Oh, that's tremendous.
After she was on, they said, I realized that I probably didn't give quite enough money, so I'm writing another check.
Oh,
And they were,
really, really
and some of the residents are extremely generous.
yes, which is very nice. And all of that, all the donations are tax deductible, right?
Yes.
In regards to it. The money goes to the employees. They've had to work for a certain number of hours or years or what?
It goes for the amount of money that you receive depends on whether you work part-time, you work full-time, how many hours you work. And if you are here last year, and I haven't talked to them in Human Resources this year, but last year you had to be here prior to September 15th to receive a check.
Prior to September 15th of the current
Last year, of the
last
current
year.
year, yes. Now, I don't know if that's changed. I haven't asked them that this year. And of course, your check would be much smaller than someone who's here 10, 15 years.
Okay. So it's based on then a ratio of how long, have anything to do with the type of job that they do?
No, it's based on your salary and the amount of time that you're here.
Okay.
Corporate has a formula that they use,
Okay.
and believe you me, they don't share it. We've all asked. And they don't share it. A lot of residents, you know, want to know how much they're receiving, that type of thing. One thing that we want to appeal to everyone is we did not have a very good turnout last year at the check presentation. And because they changed it in how they did the presentation in 2016.
Oh, okay.
And a lot of residents didn't care for the way it was done.
Okay.
So we didn't have a very good turnout last year. So we're asking everyone to look in their hearts, dig deep, and please show up at the presentation.
Yeah, that is an important thing that they
Yes.
want to make it personal to the
Exactly.
people. But that's pretty close to the proverbial Chinese fire drill. You know, as okay,
Oh, yes.
how can we get the people there and the employees?
Yes.
And you're talking about the independent living and the different shifts that are working. And then you've got Garden Ridge and got another schedule going over there.
Right.
So it is a tough thing, but they're trying to get the idea to where there can be some personal thing when we give them a check to say thank you. Yeah,
Because in the past, I mean, I've been here 10 years. In the past, it was very personal. Usually, the individuals would go to people they they'd go by the names that people have.
Right.
But the people who were handing them out recognized so many of the staff, personally, or the staff would pick up a check from, say, you, and see me and come over and hug my, and say thank you type of situation. But they are so appreciative of it.
They really
and
are.
that is their bonus for the year. I mean, and they rely on it. Many of them buy presents with it. Many of them send money back to their home country.
Sure.
Do other things with it, and so it's very, very nice.
And last year, George Rallis asked us to please have a distribution in Garden Ridge
Right.
as well as Hunter's Crossing, because for the people to come to Hunter's Crossing from Garden Ridge, it's like a 15-minute walk over, a 15-minute walk back, and if they're only there for 15 minutes, they can't afford to have them away from their workstations
Right.
that long. So we did a presentation at both places last
nice.
year.
Nice.
We learned a lot. So we'll be making some.
But you'll still be doing a presentation at Garden Ridge as well as here
Yes.
in Independent Living. Okay.
And I did ask them if they needed volunteers, and they said no, they wouldn't need any volunteers.
In Garden Ridge.
In Garden Ridge.
Okay.
But they called me the Friday before distribution and said, we need 9 volunteers. So I had extra people, but we were able to accommodate what they needed.
That's great.
And I think as far as the volunteers and with the committee and whatnot, they're the main time we get them about late November, early part of December.
Right.
That the little list goes out, say here are the committees of the council and whatnot. If you're interested, please let us know what your priority would be so that we can put those committees together and help. So we would urge the people to really consider that carefully. We need a lot of people to work.
Because the council wouldn't function without volunteers.
No.
We are all residents. We
Yep.
volunteer to do various things with the council for one another, for all of us that are here. And elections are all part of that, starting in October.
Yeah, October, November, right in that area.
Right,
Yeah.
and volunteers are requested. A call goes out for volunteers.
Right.
November, December area. So, people need to step up, sign up.
Yeah,
Right.
be thinking about that for a little bit.
Right, exactly. And it can be a lot of fun. I mean,
I enjoy it very much.
Right.
And but for the 100 volunteers that I had, I just asked people in all the neighborhoods to volunteer for staff appreciation. I just went up to them and asked them if they would like to volunteer.
I would encourage that, having been involved with, as you know, with the council for a number of years. I mean, that you have that personal contact, and people are much more willing to do things if people ask them
And
directly.
I did tell council at the 3Cs meeting that I was sending a list around because I expect all of them to sign up to volunteer.
And of course it is.
Very, very good. Okay, so Resident Life has all of the community resource people. They have the studio, the Channel 6, CSV.
Yeah.
Um,
Wellness Center
Wellness
is
Center.
connected with it. All of the television and audio type of things are going on.
Okay.
All the pastoral care that is going on, special trips. So all kinds of things.
Something is always happening.
And the
right?
social workers,
And
you
the
know.
social workers, yes, which are now called
Well, they fall under the resident services
resident
coordinator.
services
Yeah,
coordinator.
since they said they do a lot of the regular social work activity, plus they also get other things added to their
right,
list.
yeah. But they're social workers as well as doing the
That's
other
the main
things, right?
core of the work.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good. Very good. Nancy, is there anything special about the committee that you have not mentioned?
I have a great group of volunteers. Ives talked about the bulletin boards.
Yes.
We have one lady on our committee that she walks the neighborhood every day and checks all the bulletin boards.
Speaking of the bulletin boards, how long can something be up on the bulletin boards?
There's a certain amount of days, and the resident coordinators
Set those
can,
days.
yeah, they put the dates on when they can be up there.
And if you want something on a bulletin board, you go through
The resident coordinator.
resident coordinators, one of the three.
Yeah.
Yes, and then they turn everything in at the end of each day at the front desk.
Okay.
We did have a problem in both Town Center and Hunter's Crossing that the bulletin boards weren't quite up to date. But Martha Simpering is my gal that checks all the bulletin boards.
Wow.
And she just gets on everyone's case. She takes it on herself to call them and say, you know, you've got to get this corrected.
Oh, that's nice.
And when you had the movies, one of the complaints at the Listening Post was that it didn't list if there was a subtitle or not. And if you're hard of hearing, a lot of time you need those subtitles.
Makes a difference.
So she does that. She checks every movie listing to see it. It either needs to say subtitles or no subtitles.
Speaking of those who have hearing issues, there's now the loop system, right? That's now in the theater.
Yes.
And
the Akatik room.
Coil, yep.
Sequel in the theater and Akatik room, right? Okay.
They have those set up. And they had them working last time we had a meeting.
That's what I'd heard.
And we talk about the bulletin boards, but there's also your posters and whatnot. They're on the easels at the different communities.
Yes.
And that is also put in there. I think I usually look at Janelle as being the one that seems to be in the middle of that whole thing. And how long they can be up. Because they have requests all the time for the different occasions.
And there can only be 3 up at a time.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that,
and again, those are for a set number of days also, right?
Right.
Yes.
Okay. And it's really nice having those single pole.
Right. That is a big improvement.
Yes. Big improvement.
That was one of the things that our committee did last year.
Congratulations to the, congratulations to the committee on getting that accomplished. We've been asking for that for a number of years in regards to that's tremendous. You mentioned the movies. Do the movies that are shown, what, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, do those come under Resident Life?
That comes under Resident Life, and the GSV-TV provides the kind of the backup support. Encourages the people to order the movies and be there to present them. If they need to be taught how to operate the projectors, the sound and all that, they'll provide that kind of training. So that all comes under the
and the people that do that actually order the movies from Netflix, and then they put in for reimbursement for the rental of the movies. But they really need help with showing movies, especially the Friday and Saturday night. Jim Gant is the person who shows those movies, and he's not been in the best of health. And he just told me last night that if someone doesn't step up for Saturday night movies, we're going to have to discontinue those.
So folks, you heard it. You heard it first here, right? Make sure you get out there and volunteer. And the committee looks forward to having you on their committee next year, right, Nancy?
That's right, but I won't be the chair next year.
Okay, somebody else will be the chair. But
and I'll be crying.
I'm sure, I am sure. Well, Nancy, Ivan, thank you for being here today. This has been wonderful. And I hope everybody has learned something about Resident Life Committee and all the activities that go on therein and things they can volunteer for and get accomplished around here.